more minutes. Yeah, 2 more minutes. We will actually start the episode. So go ahead and let people know we are live. Join us. Join us. Share the video out. Thank you so much. All right. I just shared it out. Oh, should have put a highlight on it. Thank you for the ones that are just joining us. Thank you so much. Welcome to another episode of Talk About It Tuesday. I am your host, Cheryl, and we have about 1 more minute before we actually get started. I am looking forward to this topic on this evening. Go ahead and say hello if you are just joining us, and also share this video out. I'm a big believer that we want these videos to get into the hands of everyone that's the village of our kindergarten through fifth grade children. And for the ones that are new, go ahead and can you go ahead and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel? If you are new and joining us for the first time, head over to our YouTube channel and hit like on this episode and subscribe. It will help us to get the information out to a broader audience. So yes, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. All right. It is 7:03, everyone. And here we are. I'm your host, Cheryl, and I have a special guest that's joining me on this evening. And it's none other than my longtime friend girl that I know, Miss Thelva Nisa Green. So, yeah. Thelva Nisa, I want to say thank you so much for taking the time out. We know that with your many roles, okay, that your schedule is packed just like the rest of us. But we thank you so much for taking the time to educate our community, to let them know this month. And so you all that are here, I'm going to let Thelva Nisa introduce herself in a moment. But I want to let you know what we're doing. For the month of May, we're highlighting different awarenesses. And May had several different awarenesses. Last week we did speech, language, and hearing. And then this week, we're doing children's mental health awareness. And this is going to be really good. I got some really great information. I learned a lot. So hey, mommy, we want to know, I want you to put your questions. If you have any questions that you have right off the bat, go ahead and put your questions in there. If you have questions along the way as we are doing this episode and we're having this discussion, go ahead and drop them in there for Thelva Nisa to answer while you have her. If you've ever wanted to ask a question to your school psychologist and it just looks like, maybe you just didn't want to, or maybe there was a schedule conflict, guess what? Ask the question tonight. Talk About It Tuesdays is a time for parents, GGs, aunties, uncles, everyone that's in the lives of our kindergarten through fifth grade children to have real, raw discussions about the issues that the children in that age group face and also our village. All right. So, Thelva Nisa, thank you again. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit. Tell us who you are. What is it that you do? Tell us, what is your experience with children's mental health awareness? What do you do?
Okay, so I am Thelva Nisa Green. I am the Executive Director of Special Services for a small school district in South Carolina. I am also licensed and certified as a school psychologist, as well as I'm a licensed psychoeducational specialist. And I'm currently a candidate for a board certified behavior analysis as well. So, I'm all about working with children, mental health awareness, educating children, and really trying to support parents, teachers, and other adults that work with children and trying to help them to understand our young population. So I've been working with children for right about 30 years now. So, and I've been in the school systems for about 23 years. So I've been around for a little while.
Yes. As long as I can remember, I've known you for a long time, over 15, 20 years. I know I've been married 27, and I think I've known you for all of my 27 years. So that's a long time I've known you. And from over the 27 years from the time I got married, that's what I knew you as, in that role of school psychologist. And you've always had a passion to help and to make
Right.
sure that we were aware. As a young person myself and coming in to education, I knew that was one of your heart's passion with teachers and supporting. So thank you. Hats off to you. Now, my question that I have is, what is a psychoeducational specialist? That's one of the things that you. What is a psychoeducational
I'm licensed
specialist?
by the state of South Carolina, LLR, licensed and Labor Regulations Board. And I am able to privately diagnose students with mental health issues, diagnose students with educational issues, as well as provide short-term counseling and support for the families. So as a licensed psychoeducational specialist, what I do is I want to look at the child in a holistic manner and try to look at the different environments and ecosystems that are working around that child. And then I try to figure out how those systems can best benefit that child, as well as trying to tap into their cognitive levels, academic achievement, look at their behavior and social emotional learning and well-being as well.
Wow. So I learned something new. I did not know that you are able to provide the diagnosis actually for privately as well. Now, I know you and I did not talk about this, but do you have, like, where you work with families privately as well as in the school?
I do some, but not as much as I used to do, because just in the school district that I work in, I wear various hats. And so that keeps me pretty busy full time. So I don't do as much as I used to do. But it's still always a passion if a parent or someone wants to talk to me, or if they want some of my advice, or I look forward to opportunities such as you're giving me tonight, those types of platforms to really educate and provide services and supports to parents outside of the school environment. Because that's not where our children live. They live outside the school environment. And so we want to make sure that both of those ecosystems are working together for a well-balanced child.
I love that. Yes. And you're right. I can only imagine the many hats, but this is where, and through platforms like this, you're able to reach so many at different times, at the same time. Like you want, and you can, and this information can get out. So I love that. I love that there's a question here. And I want to ask this question to our audience. Have you all ever heard of a licensed educational specialist? Let us know in the chat. Is that something that you have ever heard of? I'm been in education for over 8 years, but I don't think I've ever heard that term. But I love the concept of where she's licensed and she's able to provide not only the diagnosis, but able to give the parents the guidance that they may need. So one of the first things in talking to a lot of parents, so I did a poll at the beginning of let us know in the chats, you all, let us know in the chat, have you ever heard of a psychoeducational specialist? And one of the things is, what is the role? Because parents, I don't know whether they've gotten that information before. Okay, Tiffany says she has, okay. What is the role of a school psychologist? Before you answer, in the audience, what do you think the role, if you have children kindergarten through 5th grade, or if your children are teens now and they're they went through kindergarten through 5th grade already, what, parents, grandparents, aunties, in the chat, let me know, what do you think the role of a school psychologist is? This is going to let us know where we are, right? And where's the understanding of this? Because I'm going to share my experience based on the conversation that you and I had, Delvanisa Green. I know I was saying Murphy earlier. Forgive me. Okay. What do you think the role? Please put in the chats. what do you think the role of a school psychologist is? The role of your child's school psychologist or the school that's near you? What do you think? All schools, and Delvanisa, do all schools have a school psychologist?
Yes, absolutely.
They do have, okay. So all schools have a school psychologist. And is it just elementary schools that have a school psychologist, or do the middle and high have one as well?
Middle and high as well. The school psychologist works across that whole gamut from ages 3 to 21 within the school system, and privately from birth to 21.
Wow. Okay. All right. So before she lets us know what is the role of a school psychologist, I want to hear from you. What do you know? Just take a guess. Just take a guess. What do you think the role of a school psychologist is? Okay, so Christine said my first thought is like a guidance counselor, but more. Okay. Anyone else? What do you think the role of a school? Just drop it in here. We're having real. Michelle says to help children's behavior and mental and social health. Okay, very good. Someone else, go ahead, put it in there, you all. What do you think the role of a school psychologist is? Delvanisa, as they are putting in the chat, let us know. What is the role of a school psychologist?
Well, when I enrolled into the program, I very much thought like Christina. It was just the guidance counselor that provided counseling and supports to the students within the school environment. However, upon entering my program, I realized it was so much more than that. It was just so much more than that. And what I do is I can provide those pre-intervention supports for academics, behavior, social development, and learning to teachers and families so that I can educate them. But then one of the larger parts of my job and aspect as a school psychologist is actually to make those learning diagnoses that our children might show or express, such as learning disabilities, dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, autism, developmental delays. So I make all of those diagnoses as a school psychologist. And then I also provide that support to the teachers and families, as well as even to the students. Sometimes I can do short-term counseling and therapy with the students so that they can understand the diagnoses and how this particular child is manifesting that diagnosis, because it doesn't always show up the same way in each and every child. So like I said, I've been a school psychologist for 24, 25 years now. And even then, I'm still coming up with kids' profiles that I've never seen that meet certain diagnoses, because no two students are alike. And so I pretty much work very closely with special education and making those diagnoses for enrollment and identification for students who are receiving those special education services.
All right, y'all, that was a lot. Okay, so did you all listen? Was that new information for you, what she shared, or is that something that you already knew? So we're talking about children's, for you all that are just joining us. May is Children's Mental Health Awareness Month. In addition to just regular mental health awareness, it specifies children's mental health awareness. When we're talking about that, Delvanisa, what can you tell us? Why is children's mental health important, and what all, when you're talking about children's mental health, what all does that encompass?
So when you think about it, if you have maladaptive children, you're going to have maladaptive adults. So this is where it starts at the children's level. To understand when they're engaging in certain behaviors, when they are expressing themselves, it's kind of atypical behavior for a child of that developmental age. That's the time when we want to try to provide that support to that child. Children can be bipolar too. Children can be depressed. Children can be anxious. And we think that they don't have the same roles and responsibilities as an adult. So what they're stressing over, what they're depressed about, but they can. They can get distressed. They can have anxiety disorders, so a child's mental health, before you can reach them academically, sometimes we need to make sure that they're feeling safe and secure, because before you can begin to work on any other aspect with that child, they have to have a feeling of safety and secure. And if they're anxious and depressed, then they're not feeling that.
Wow. That is so good that you mentioned that, because I remember that was one of the things that as an educator, I knew that if a child came in and they had even this, sometimes that I would have one or two children that may have come from a family that was less fortunate, and until I met their physical needs of being hungry or making sure they were warm. Sometimes if they didn't have, they would come to school and it was cold and they didn't have the proper clothing. I would do whatever I had to do to make sure that child, and that's just me as an educator. I always tell people that I'm passionate about children's spiritual and their academic well-being, right? The whole child, but really focusing in on their spiritual and their academic. So I really appreciate you sharing that, because that was one of the things I noticed. It was just hard. It's difficult. And we think about us. And that is I'm so glad you brought that out, because as an adult, we can get hangry, right? And we have the different stressors that are going on in our lives. And if it's challenging for us as adults to try to focus and think about things that we need, the important things that we need to do, and think about when we're going through just a rough time or having just these difficult challenges of life, when we're life is lifing, right? That it's challenging for us. So what do we think about a child who has not had the skills, and then more so of a child that is dealing with something mentally where they may not be able to grasp the skills automatically as a child without mental health issues? So I want to say in the chat, in answer to the question, Anastasia Murphy, she said that the role of the school psychologist is to advocate for children. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Sometimes I'm advocating for students even against their parents. I'm like, listen, we both want the same thing for the child, but we both have a different way of achieving it. And so sometimes I have to explain to a parent that there's a such thing as just, burning students out, burning kids out. And so sometimes, they want to support the school so bad, they strip the kids of everything in their room, no toys, no nothing. But if they have nothing to lose, then they have nothing to give either. We need to think about that.
Wow. That's really good. They don't have anything to lose. They don't have anything to give. Wow. That's powerful. Now I see, yes, Patrice said absolutely. They're agreeing with you. Angela said yes. And Katrina Hughes Demery, she has a question. She said, what are the signs a parent should look for with small children's mental health? And I think that's along one of the questions that I had also, like when you're diagnosing a child, what lets you know that a child has these mental health issues?
Well,
and then and I guess
one of the biggest ones that we all see is the anger, the aggression that's coming from somewhere, and a lot of times it's coming from poor self-awareness, because a child could be confused and not know how to do something in the classroom or even at home, or not even know how to ask for help. And instead of that child trying to label that as, I'm confused, I need help, I need support, then they get angry, they throw things, they rip things, because they're mislabeling. They're thinking, I'm angry. You're not angry. You're frustrated. you're confused, but
Mhm.
you're not angry. And so we need to start there. But some of the things you want to look for if there's sudden changes in your child.
Okay, because I was going to ask, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to let you finish, because my question would be, well, I get angry. Does that mean that I have, or children get angry? So what is the difference between a child that doesn't have mental health issues getting angry and a child that has mental health issues getting angry? What is that, to distinguish? Is it, is
The
it every child?
frequency and the intensity of those problems.
The
That's
frequency.
atypical than the typical developing child. So if this child frequently engages in rages, or if this child engages in rages where they're ripping and throwing everything up and being extremely disruptive, or if it's lasting for a very long time, it's like once they get to that level, it's really hard to de-escalate them and bring them back down. That's not typical. That's not typical. You can have a moment of anger where you just want to throw something, and after you throw it, you're done. But you don't go and destroy the whole house or destroy everything around you. That's atypical. So you look for those things. You look for changes. Just overly withdrawn, just kind of into themselves, not really wanting to engage with others. Children by nature learn through exploration. And if they're not exploring their environment and engaging in social interactions with other children, then that's another sign that something could be wrong with your child. You may want to get additional support. A lot of times we like to chalk that up as, oh, they're quiet, they're good, they're fine. Because who doesn't want the quiet kid? Who doesn't want the kid that, can kind of fend for themselves or appear to be self-reliant? But you want to have conversations, because there's nothing wrong with being shy, but being withdrawn is a different thing. It looks very different from being shy, because if I'm shy, if you make me comfortable, then I can express myself.
I love
but
that.
If I'm withdrawn, even if I'm comfortable, I won't be able to express myself. I won't be able to get to that comfort level. It'll take a whole lot.
That is so good. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Katrina, for asking that question. Krisha, hello. Thank you for joining us, Krisha. For the ones that are just joining us, we're talking about children's mental health awareness. Thank you all so much. If you have any other questions, go ahead and drop them in there. That was a great question, because that was one of the things I wanted to know, what distinguishes, because we all get angry, and share this discussion with someone. We all get angry, but what is that distinguishing those distinguishing factors? And Thelvanisa said the distinguishing factor is the frequency and the intensity. Okay, the frequency and the intensity. So my question to you is, have you all had any personal experience with children and mental health? Any personal experience that you want to share, don't mind sharing, with children and mental health? Have you had any experience with your school psychologist? What was that experience like? Thelony, so we want to go into, I noticed that you said that you're able to diagnose children with mental health issues. Who is the first, where should that, I guess, who should be looking at these behaviors? Where does it come from? Is it the parent? Is it the school? How does that?
Well, we all should, because we all experience children in a different way. When, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but my mom would always say this. If someone commented and says, oh, Thelvanisa was, good in class today, which she rarely got that. But if she did, she would often say, oh, my Thelvanisa, not the Thelvanisa I know, because she's always into things, doing things at home. So we experience children in a totally different way. And so when we're at school, we want to understand, if this child is not consistent with the other children? Are they kind of a little odd, just doing things a little bit differently, just frequently crying, just very irritable? I mean, you might see children who prefer adult attention over peer attention. These may not be your teacher pets, because your teacher pets can get along with anyone, but these are children who just kind of cling to the adult and don't want to interact with their peers at any given time. Just always anxious and very irritable. These are the types of children that we should be kind of looking at. And then even at home, if you see a sudden change in your child's behavior, their eating habits, their sleeping habits, one time they slept well, now they're barely sleeping at night, or they're sleeping too much. They sleep when they come home from school. They sleep throughout the night. They sleep in class. They're just always sleeping. Look at those things. Kids who can't sleep, kids who sleep too much. Just look at those different extremes. And, if you see something that's kind of like odd or abnormal, start with your pediatrician. Ask your pediatrician, or start with your school psychologist. Each school should have a school psychologist, a guidance counselor. Start with some of them. Start with your school's nurse. The school nurse is there to support you and hook you up with those mental health providers within your community. So there are resources just right there at your fingertips that you don't have to have a specialist for. Your pediatrician, your school psychologist, or your school nurse. Those are great places to start.
And I see Creisha's having an issue. I love that. Creisha is having a lot of comments, and I thank you all. I'm taking notes, you all, because this is good. This is information that is great for all of us. And Creisha said that she believes that the parents should notice changes within. And she said behaviors that stand out. And then she said, is sleeping too much could be a sign of depression. She said, I always ask my children, are they okay? And if anyone is bothering them, I ask, how was their day? Now, Thelvanisa, I wanted to ask a question. Is there any, thank you, Creisha, this is really good, or if anyone makes them uncomfortable. I'm going to go back, because I do have a question that's related to what Creisha is saying. But first, I want to know, are there what are you seeing? Are there most a common or the most type of the most common disorders, mental disorders that you have seen? I know this could vary across districts, across children, but just as a school psychologist, as a psychoeducational specialist, is there a particular disorder that you've been seeing the most of? And before you answer, I see Michelle says bullying can cause these behaviors. That works on mental health and poor grades and self-esteem. Okay, so I'm going to come back to that, because that is one of the things that I want to come back and address. Where does it come from? Is it hereditary? But first, what I want to ask the question, is it a diagnosis that you've seen that's most common in children kindergarten through fifth grade?
Depression, anxiety disorders, ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorders. All of these things are on the rise. We were having issues with children's mental health and well-being prior to the pandemic. It's now just taken off. And it's a lot. It's more than your school psychologist can handle. It's more than your guidance counselor can handle. So our federal government, as well as many of our states governments, have put a lot of money and focus on students' social emotional learning. Schools are focusing on that a lot more, because there's a lot more behavior problems and behavior issues that are being mislabeled as a bad child, when it could be something else that's underlining for that child. And so before we go there, maybe we need to tap into some counseling services, some counseling supports for our child. Maybe we need to look at bullying. As the young viewer just mentioned, yeah, that's one thing that could cause a lot of problems. But I think we put too much effort, or we put too much into bullying. I'm not saying that it's not a problem or an issue within our schools, but overscheduling, like just overscheduling, having these kids do too much too often. You know, you have kids who go to school all day, then they have after school, then they have practice, then they got to come home and do homework, and it's just a lot, and they're all scheduled. On the weekends they got to go to a game, they got to go to rec football, they got to do more enrichment activities, they got to get on this computer-based program. It's a lot. They have a lot, and this is creating anxieties in our children because they want to do well, they want to achieve, they want to please, but it's just too much. And you know what happens? They sacrifice sleep. They sacrifice that downtime. Have you ever said, I need a mental health day? Children need a mental health day too. And when every day of the week they're scheduled for something or have to go somewhere or do something, and they never get that downtime, it's too much. And it can lead to depression, anxiety. It can lead to some of this being overwhelmed and overstressed.
Okay. So, wow. I didn't think about that in terms of, and you all, I know that I think my screen is frozen, but I'm going to keep you all. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Vanessa? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm working out with my technology, we're going to keep going because this is such a great discussion. Christina, if I miss, you might have to, because I think my chat has stopped also. So anything that comes up, you may have to put it up so that I can see it. But yes, so let's go back. The most common things, the most common, I see what Krisha in the chat has something as well. The most common diagnoses that you said that you came up with, that you've noticed recently, has been, you said depression and did you say ADHD? What were the ones that you said?
Depression, anxiety, ADHD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and now it's this new phenomenon coming up where they call it disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, DMDD, and you know, that's just kids becoming very explosive at a younger age. And the thing about it, if we do not meet our children's mental health needs now, then they only build and become something else. A kid with what we call behavior concerns or maladaptive behaviors start out as a child who might be oppositional defiant. Then they grow up to become teenagers who have conduct problems. Then they grow up to become sociopaths. So you see how that just, and if we treat that oppositional defiant child and we figure out what's the problems and what's the issues, then we don't have a teenager with conduct problems, and we don't have an 18, 20-year-old that's now a sociopath.
Wow. This is really good, you all. This is if you are learning something, just drop in the chat, I am learning. Okay. If you are learning something, drop in the chat, I am learning. All right. I'm trying to see. Hold on. Okay, we can do something.
Yes, absolutely. I do believe, I agree with Miss Katrina. Social media has been an outlet that has taken our children down a rabbit hole that I don't know if we're going to be able to dig them out of. So at this point, as parents, all we can do is monitor and try to have those conversations with our children. I know that I heard one viewer said, I try to ask my child, how was their day? Well, their day could have taken many turns. Their day could have been happy. Their day could have been sad because they got a question wrong in front of the classroom. Their day could have been disappointed because all the chocolate milk was gone when they went into the cafeteria. So one of the questions or some of the things that I ask is be more specific when you talk to your children. Instead of saying, how was your day? What made you laugh today? Who did you sit by at lunch today? Did you get any questions correct today? What happened in math that you learned new today? What happened in English that you learned new today? So think of those things where you can just start having those conversations with your child. And it doesn't have to be anything, big. Just who did you sit beside at lunch? Who did you play with at break time today? And then that gives you an insight into your child's world. And did you help anyone today? Just asking those questions, starting those conversations can kind of open up that world, like with your child. What were you disappointed at any time today in yourself? Did your teacher have to fuss at a student in the class? Ask the specific questions so you can get to know your child. And from asking those questions, it also helps you to understand how they are interpreting the world and if they're making those interpretations correctly. Because again, we want to start with self-awareness. We want our children from K-5 to understand who they are, to correctly label their feelings, and to be able to express that feeling in the correct way.
That is so good, you all. I am enjoying this. Are you all? Do I have visual now, Delvanisa?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And one of the things that I see in this, I want to touch on this is Tiffany Gibson says, as a teacher, I've had to deal with both very aggressive children as well as withdrawn children. I get my classroom to a point where my assistant teacher can take over, giving me a chance to give those. Let's see, what else does it say? To give those children the one-on-one time that is truly needed. I also start having conversations with the family to see how I can help and how we can work together. Tiffany, I am so glad you shared that, because one of the things I mentioned to Delvanisa in our conversation was that we may have, as educators, we may have undiagnosed children in our classes. And I felt there was a teacher that was in the school system with me when we were teaching first grade. And my question, though, Vanessa, is what support do the teachers get? And I'm asking this because I remember it causing so much stress where she would have to get all of the children out of the class because the first grader would start throwing the books, flipping the desks over, right? Now, I know as educators, sometimes we may not be equipped for that.
Right.
And I'm not sure if the child had a diagnosis or not, but I just remember this was an ongoing, almost everyday situation that she was a friend of mine, teacher friend, and I felt that she was just very stressed out about this. So what support do the teachers have? Tiffany, have you gotten the support that you need with this? Do you feel that you're getting the right support? Now, I don't know if I don't know if any of your district or school is on here, but that is a question. If you are an educator, do you feel that you get the support that is needed? We're going to be wrapping up shortly, but Delvanisa, can you answer that? What support do the teachers have when I have 20 children in the class and I might have one or two that's with the mental, children's that's dealing with the disorder?
Well, what you're going to do is you want to understand what the function of that behavior is. You want to understand what purpose is that behavior serving. And if you can meet that, then you can prevent that. Because if it always happens in math when they have to do independent work, then we understand math is difficult. So we're not going to put you in a situation where you have to do math by yourself right now, because I understand that that's difficult for you, and you're going to become explosive because that's difficult. Some of the very, very simple ones is like no. Oh, I've heard that so many times. They don't want to hear no. As soon as I say no, they go into a rage. So let's not say no. Let's give them a choice. Let's give them a choice. Let's give them a contingency. If you do 5 problems, then you can do that. If you do this, then you can do that. Just think about it. As an adult, when you get angry or upset, I know a lot of times I start to rub my hands together when I'm anxious, or I start to shake my legs or whatever. That's energy. That's energy. And when a kid has that energy, we got to let it out or it's going to explode. What's wrong with you taking a few minutes to address your children's social emotional needs at the beginning of the class for 10 or 15 minutes? I'd rather lose 10 or 15 minutes than to lose a full 60 minutes of instructional time. If you can meet that child the first 10 to 15 minutes, give them what they need, and then you can teach. You got 45 minutes left in that hour, and you can make that work. But if you get an explosive kid, like you said, Miss Cheryl, and you got to take everyone out that classroom because this kid has just taken over, you've lost your whole 60 minutes. You've lost all the time.
Who is supposed to help the educator?
Well, see, that's when you have your school psychologist. You know, I've spoken and I've been around some really great teachers, and what they tell me is routines. You have to establish a routine in your classroom, and once you establish that routine, then you have to go by it, and it has to be consistent. You can't have a routine if you're not consistent at it. You need to have a routine for going to the water fountain, a routine for sharpening your pencil, a routine for going to the restroom. You just need to have a routine for everything. I recently worked with a particular student, and he was always running out of class and always having a lot of difficult time in class. What we did was we said, let's give him breaks. Set a timer, and we want you to work 30 minutes. So you work 30 minutes, and then we're going to give you a 15-minute break. And then you can walk around the school with the principal, the custodian, or whatever, and take your timer, because once your 15 minutes is up, then you have to come back to class. Because when you're angry, you got to get it out. When you want to, when you're put in a tough situation and your back is against the wall and you're between a rock and a hard place as a child, because you have all your peers here and you think as a child, because I know sometimes I think it as an adult, everybody in the room is looking at you, and they know you can't read. They know your weaknesses. They know what's going on with you, and probably no one is paying you the least bit of attention. But it's here. If it's your perception, that's your reality. And so as a teacher, we have to be able to recognize what those trigger points are. And then you can have your school psychologist support you and tell you what those trigger points are. You can have like your behavior interventionists, guidance counselors. They're all there to support you. But first, let's take information down, because it's not going to be a one fixed trick. And I like that. Once we figure out what is sustaining that problem, what we want to do is now problem solve how we can prevent that situation. If the child doesn't want to hear the word no, then let's not use no. If they don't want to hear it, let's say you can do this or you can do that. Have a choice. You didn't say no, but these are your choices. The child wants to read, they can't read. You can do this math, or you can work on this puzzle. Right now it's not reading time. So these are your choices, this puzzle or this math. Just give them choices like that.
Good, because that was one of my questions that I wanted to know for parents. Like, what are some tips for a parent that if a child is experiencing some stressors at home, they may not be diagnosed, or if they are diagnosed, like what if there's a child that is experiencing some stressors as a parent, what are some of the things they can do? And I love that you asked. I don't know if there's any others that you can think about. You all, if there is, let us know. I want to say thank you all for these comments, because these are some really, and your feedback, they're very good. I see that Michelle said kids are experiencing verbal abuse, being cursed out and yelled at regularly. Some are experiencing sexual abuse and doing things in the classroom. Let's see.
So if you have a child living in this type of ecosystem at home where it's an abusive, whether it's mentally, physically, sexually, verbally, emotionally, because simply a parent not saying I love you is an emotional abuse. If a parent ignores a child, that's emotional abuse. So there's a lot of things that parents do or can do to open up so that their child feels like loved and compassion. And when that child comes to school, you need to be warm. Our children, they so know who likes them and who don't. They know.
I always say that they are
And
the
you
best
got to
judge of
become
character.
a master of acting. If this is a baby that you don't like, you're going to have to be a master of acting, and you're going to have to figure out how to show love to a kid that might not be as lovable as the rest, so that you can gain their trust. And once you've gained their trust, then they'll do whatever you want them to do, but you got to gain their trust first.
Yeah, and I say it all the time. That's why I believe in godly teachers. I say it all the time. Like, I believe in it, because one of the things I remember them asking me, what my principal and my assistant principal, when it was time for my review, Miss West, that, we saw that this child in that's in your class is no longer acting out like how they were in kindergarten when they were running away from the class. What it is that you do? I said, well, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear? Or what you want me to tell you the truth? Well, the truth is, when I get their names in the summer, my roster, I call their name out, each child by name, every single day in prayer, asking the Lord to bless their behaviors. Okay, that's just the spiritual side of it. I'm not even gonna get into that.
Right.
But I'm letting you know, like, it does. I don't believe in teachers, because teachers not liking a student. You may not like because their behaviors, but not so much not liking the child, because you went into education knowing that there's going to be different factors and there are going to be different children. I'm going to highlight Yolanda as PT. She said, "My children I see for PT look forward to telling me about their day. And yes, I ask questions about their different emotions they could experience in the day." So you all, this is good. Tiffany said, "Given choices makes a huge difference with children." Delvanisa, as we are closing, I wanted to know two things. Is it is children mental health, is that like something that's hereditary, or is it can it come from so many different factors? And then I want you to be thinking of any last words or tips that you may give parents or teachers as we're closing. I want you all, I just want to say thank you for you all joining. And once we finish with this discussion, please share this video out. If in honor of Children's Mental Health Awareness, I just want you to type in the chat, children's, you do CMH aware, okay? Children's Mental Health Aware, CMH, hashtag CMH aware, or just CMH aware. And that's going to just spread the word children's mental health awareness, like it matters, right? Their
It
mental health
absolutely do matter.
matters.
It
Um,
absolutely matters.
and as So I want to know, as we are closing, is it is mental health hereditary? Yes, Patrice said yes, Lord. Prayer is definitely needed. Thank you for this session. Yes, you are welcome, Patrice. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this discussion and the village for our kindergarten to fifth grade children. Because if we can focus on them now, as Selvanisa mentioned, oh, Tiffany, that's good. She said, when a child trusts you, they begin to see and feel that you want the best for them. Yes, 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 yes. Tiffany, I can attest to that. That is so true. That is so true. Yolanda says, thank you for these discussions and information. Uh, I agree. I agree. Children, go ahead and put in there as we are, don't go anywhere yet as we are closing, but go ahead and put in the chat children mental health aware or CMH aware, whichever one you want. Put that in the chat. So is it hereditary, Thelvanisa?
Mental health issues can be hereditary, but they can be environmental too. It's just depends. That's that whole nature versus nurture type of situation. You can have a child that comes from a very broken home and become broken. And then you can have a child that comes from a broken home and feel so nourished, feel so aware of who they want to be and what they want to be. Just briefly, if I can share, I remember growing up in a single family household, and that was supposed to be your broken home, just growing up in a single parent household. And I felt so much love in my household. I really didn't have to want for anything. I really never like went hungry or anything like that. The struggle was real. We struggled. But at the same time, I always felt loved. I always felt cared for. I just remember graduating with my master's degree. This is a master's degree, and I'm proud. I'm real proud of myself, and I'm very proud. And I have 3 children, and so I'm like, look, Mom, look what I did. I got this master's degree, and I got 3 kids. And she was like, I've always expected you to get your master's degree. That was never a question. Like, our family is built on education, and education was always the bar. Education. Now do something, unusual and get a doctorate degree. And I was just like, what? She was like, so if you want to get some extra kudos for me, you have to get a doctorate degree. But I always felt like you was going to get a master's degree. So the expectation to succeed was always there. And we want to have that for all of our children. Never lower your expectation for any child, regardless of what their potential and their cap might say. Never lower your expectation. Always believe in what they can. Always try to support them and look for those things that set them off. There's some things that sets the children off. And if you have a kid and you're like, okay, but there's nothing setting this kid off. If you can't identify it, then there may be some underlying mental health problems there. There may be some things going on that hadn't been addressed, and a professional may need to support you. But start with the school psychologist, start with your guidance counselor, start with the school nurse, go to your pediatrician. These are all people who you can contact in the initial stages of identifying that something may be awry with your child, something may be a problem with your student. Just checking in and checking out. Find someone that child does have a bond with, even if you're not the teacher of choice, but this child still has to come to you. Maybe that check in and check out occurs during your class period time, because you know that when they come to you for some reason, everything goes awry. So let that favorite person that they have a connection with, let that person do a check-in or check out with that child right before they come to your classroom, so that that child is not pumped to be there. And no teacher wants to admit that they're not the child's favorite, but they're ready to admit that this child is in their favor. So let's do some introspection here too. Let's do some introspection here too, and take a look at how we're giving out, reprimands.
Yeah.
We have what we call those frequent flyers, those red flag kids. We know who they are. We've heard about them since kindergarten, first grade. They had a whole nother school for fourth and fifth grade, but we've already heard about them. We've heard about them. We know who they are, but instead of labeling them, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out where these behaviors are coming from. And when you try to understand a child, don't try to figure out how to solve their household. We can't control what's going on at home. We have no control over home. So whether or not this child needs food at home, whether or not this child's mother is working 2 or 3 jobs, is an absent mother, being raised by their grandparents, we can't control it. Unless it's an abusive situation, we can't control it. So let's try to meet that child where they are when they come to school. Allow school to be that safe place. Allow school to be that place of love and care, so that child can dig deep within themselves and want to achieve and want to please. This may be a kid who's living from hotel to hotel, but if they're showing up to your classroom, open up and work with them. Open up. They're coming there for a reason. I had a superintendent tell me one time that the parents send us what they have. They send us what they have. They don't keep the good kids at home. They send us what they have. And whether we passed on jeans or whether we passed on some khakis and something just isn't right with them, that's all they had. And they sent us the best they had. They sent the best they had. And so whether or not this kid comes with behavior concerns, whether or not this kid comes hungry, whatever it is, they sent what they had. They sent what they had at the house. They did not keep the good ones locked up someplace safe and sound from you. They sent what they had at the house. And so now it's up to us for this brief period of a day to maximize that child's potential and try to make them feel loved, safe, secure, and successful. Regardless of how they find that success, they need to feel successful. And it's not going to always be through A's and B's at school.
Yeah. Thank you. That was great. Yes, someone said kudos to you, Mrs. Green. And someone said this information is so good, breaking stereotypes around mental health to get the needed support to encourage and understand the kids. I love that. If there's anything that you have learned, drop it in there. I would say the thing that I've learned. What is the one thing? What is the one takeaway that you've gotten out of this discussion? What is the one takeaway that you've gotten? And I would say one of the things that stood out to me is you said, instead of labeling, understand. Because we're so quick to say, oh, that this child is this, or this child is that, right? Or this child is this, but have we taken the time to understand? I love that. Delvanisa, thank you so much. You all, thank you so much for joining us. Everyone that's on, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go do so. Share this video out. Thank you all so much. If you think
thank you to my village. Thank you everyone for showing up to support me.
Showed up.
I want to send a shout out to my niece Peyton Danielle. I missed your choir session tonight, but I love you just the same, and thank you for understanding that I can't be there. Your Faye loves you. And to my children and everyone else, my co-workers, my big sis, thank you all for being here to support me.
Oh, I love that. It's good to have, everyone needs a village. Everyone needs a village, and you have a strong village that I've seen here in the chat. So remember, hashtag CMH aware, spread this video out. I appreciate you all. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to our guest, Delvanisa A. Green, who gave some great information. Thank you so much for all that you are doing for our children. Until next time, everyone, remember to, Stephanie, so stay on. Until next time, everyone, remember to light it up.
Bye.
Bye.